There's nothing like that rock star experience when your Benz pulls up to the side of your plane and your pilot walks out and shakes your hand and walks you on board the plane and hands you that drink that we know that you want because of your client profile, and you want to have the Financial Times sitting on the right-hand front forward seat. It's right there. There's nothing like that experience.
Do you want to run a business that caters to a luxury clientele? There's little that screams luxury quite like a private jet, and charter jets are an industry with a huge profit potential. AJAX Jets founder Justin Sullivan knows this firsthand. His passion for aviation and high-class customer service led him to starting a charter jet business 15 years ago, and his growth since has been phenomenal. Today, his 5 aviation companies bring in a combined 7-figure monthly revenue, and he's here to share his story and advice on how to start a charter jet business with our listeners. Justin, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Great to be here.
So to get things started, I just want to hear about how you got into the charter jet business and how that eventually led to AJAX Jets.
So I was enamored with the industry. I was in tech sales to start off my career out of university. And in the recession of 2003, 2004, a couple of my friends went over to be sales reps with one of the largest companies in the industry based here in the Boston area. I had never heard of the industry and just felt, man, I would love to be a part of that. And I interviewed with that company, got a job offer as a sales rep. But instead, I found an opportunity with one of these .com startups who had raised a bunch of money to go out and tackle the on-demand charter world. So I came into that organization as VP of sales, really like a player coach. And as we'll talk about, Alex, this business is really about personal relationships and deep domain expertise, doing a great job for your clients and being a world-class sales and service person. So I took like a duck to water to this, and it was like 15, 16 years ago. Started off working for the man.
I love that. I love that. Now, that first company, now, is that Private FLITE?
The company that I worked for originally is the predecessor to Sentient Jet, which is still like the 800-pound gorilla in the industry. They invented the concept of private jet cards, which is really like a pre-funded membership. And, that's really one of the lessons that I took from that experience and working with that company is that people buy programs, they don't buy proposals. And taking private jet access and turning it into an easy to digest and easy to consume program is what put that company on the map. And those lessons continue to pay dividends many years later.
When did you kind of venture out on your own?
About 3 or 4 years later. So probably 2011-ish, 2010. And really, I was just ready to start my own business. I'd done a lot of entrepreneurial things. Going back to my first entrepreneurial venture was in 4th grade, selling bracelets made out of telephone wire through the school store. And I've had an entrepreneurial bug up my butt ever since. So I think when I got into this industry, I had probably done 10 or 11 different startups.
Wow, that's an incredible track record of experience to have coming into getting a company off the ground. To the outsider who's not as familiar with the industry, I imagine I won't be surprised that it's probably an expensive industry to break into if you're going to start a company. What are some of those startup costs that exist to starting a charter jet business?
So it's a multifaceted industry, Alex. To be a charter broker, where maybe it would just be helpful to your audience to back up and just explain the market, if you will. So there are high net worth individuals, athletes, entertainers, business owners, companies who do not own a private jet and desire to fly from point A to point B. So they'll want to fly, say, from Boston to San Francisco. And on the other side of the continuum, there are airplane owners who hire management companies. We're really private jet airlines. They're called Part 135 air carriers. And those are companies that are duly licensed from the FAA to hold out commercial air transportation. They're typically small flight departments that cater to a local, highly local clientele. And the job of charter broker is really no different than the job of a travel agent, and that we take a unit of demand. In this case, Mr. Big is trying to fly from Boston to San Francisco, and then represent that client in the marketplace of different air carriers who bid on those services. And as a charter broker, you earn a commission, typically 10 to 15% of the top line revenue for facilitating that transaction. There are no barriers to entry. In our organization, we do a lot of athletes work or flights for athletes. And that's because we have a former Major League Baseball player who played probably 3 years in the Pittsburgh Pirate organization and built a lot of great relationships that he could extend beyond his playing career. So this is a guy, he's from Latin America. He knows everybody, and he's built for himself a beautiful business of being a charter broker. And for him and for us, there's no barriers to entry. Anybody can go start a charter company tomorrow. It just takes years of developing the domain expertise. Because if you think about it, we're really selling the most exclusive high-end product in the world. That flight from Boston to San Francisco is on one of our jets is about $35,000 one way. So not only do you have to be a skillful negotiator and a polished sales professional and relationship builder, but you really have to be a domain expert in sourcing that, knowing the legalities, and delivering a world-class buyer experience. So that's how I started my career, is as a charter broker. And if somebody feels that they have a book of relationships with high net worth individuals, like that baseball player I just referred to, they could start their business inside our business and learn from the pros and have a whole sales and service delivery team behind them. So they're really learning the industry from the ground up and monetizing it as they do. And it's, quite frankly, a very lucrative industry. What my business has done is we've grown from that charter brokering where, again, there's no barriers to entry into, we acquired a Part 135 air carrier back in 2021. We operate a fleet of executive business jets that fly all over the world. And that does take money. So to acquire one of these air charter certificates is about $1 million at the low end, and goes, it can be considerably higher depending on the assets that air carrier has. But an air carrier itself is about $1 million. And they just have to know what to do with it once you buy it.
So thank you for that kind of overview of the industry and how it works. That was really, really informative. And I think, can we take it just another step further? And can you kind of give us the overview of the structure of AJAX Jets? Because I know there's multiple companies under the umbrella. Can you talk about what that structure is? And then I kind of want to go into the advantages of kind of adopting that structure.
Yes. So one side of our business continues to be charter brokering and really retail access to our fleet of planes. So we have a portfolio of high net worth individuals, athletes, entertainers, corporations who desire to fly privately. They work with myself or one of our agents to facilitate those trips. Another side of our business is that Part 135 air carrier, where we operate a fleet of planes. We own a couple of them, but most of them are owned by other high net worth individuals and companies who, for various tax, operational, lifestyle, and other reasons, have invested in an aircraft. And we manage that much like a real estate management company would manage a timeshare for you. They deal with all of the maintenance, the insurance, the monetization, which in our case is charter. And then the third leg of our business is aircraft maintenance. In Buffalo, New York, we have a hangar full of technicians. We initially started that business, Private Jet Maintenance LLC, to cater to our own fleet of planes. And when I talk about maintenance, I mean keeping our airframes and jets flying legal and safe and compliant. So think about your car. There's Service E comes on and you have to take it to the dealership and they run it through 97 points of what Service E is. It's the exact same thing of keeping a private jet maintained to its manufacturer's specs, which is what we need to do in order to fly legal charters. So that business started just providing maintenance for our own fleet of planes. And now we provide outstation maintenance, outsourced maintenance management services. So private jet owners who don't want to charter their planes, but realize the complexities in maintaining it and managing all of the service bulletins and required upgrades and work that needs to be done and all of that proper tracking. And they outsource that to our operation in Buffalo. So altogether, it's 3 companies and about 100 FTE.
Why the structure of operating them as 3 companies under a parent company as opposed to either bringing them all into one big vertical or you being the CEO of 3 different companies?
That's a great question. In capitalizing the Part 135 air carrier, I raise capital and I have financial partners in that side of the business. And the maintenance side really just morphed after the charter business came. And, frankly, there's more liability and more things that could go wrong in the maintenance business. So the other side, from a marketing standpoint, AJAX Jets, AJAX The type of jet that we fly is called a Falcon. Ajax is Greek for Falcon. So it has some symbology, and it's a name, frankly, that I just really love. But it doesn't really speak to somebody who wants to maintain their jet. So we set up a standalone organization called PJM Private Jet Maintenance that does exactly that. That's a company that about 20 people there, a little less than that, but that started 2 years ago with one key hire. Our general manager, Ben Chifo, is a master A&P technician, has been in this industry for almost 30 years. And we hired him to be our station chief and general manager and director of maintenance. So he takes great pride in running his operation. He has full P&L responsibility, as do the GMs of the other businesses. And it makes a lot of sense for us to look at it as businesses that feed each other, but are not exactly the same entity.
You mentioned raising capital for the bringing in the fleet itself. Can you talk about that process, both how you went about attracting your investors and what sort of planning you might advise somebody to be doing before they start approaching investors?
Having a fully baked business plan and having deep domain expertise is essential to attracting investors, and also having investors that have an affinity for the thing that you're selling, the business that you're trying to get them into is essential. So naturally, in private air travel and private aviation, it's a sexy space and it attracts high net worth individuals, on its face. So I raise capital all day, every day, Alex. I'm selling aircraft. I'm selling fractions of aircraft, and I'm doing it to my audience of high net worth individuals. So I'd say I have a little bit of an unfair advantage that if I was trying to start a home heating oil distributorship and I knew everything there was to know about home heating oil distribution, it lacks that one thing, which is not everybody who's into home heating oil is a multimillionaire, but most of the people who fly privately are multimillionaires.
Quick reminder to our listeners that if you want more insights on how to successfully run and scale multiple businesses, make sure you listen to our interview with Serge Figuet in episode 60 of our podcast to hear how he runs 5 multi-million-dollar companies. Justin, I'm curious about overhead costs in the industry. Can you talk about what some of those costs might be and how Ajax keeps those costs low?
Overhead is extraordinarily high in this industry because we deal with very highly trained professionals. And in this day and age, highly trained professionals come with a cost. So one of the ways that we mitigate the overhead of the operation is, if you think about pilots, for example, pilots are our biggest payroll item. A captain on one of our jets earns about $150,000 a year plus benefits. Second in command will earn $120,000. So essential to our business model is having those costs, all of the fixed and variable costs of managing an aircraft, stand on the owner's side of the ledger. So the monthly overhead for one of our jets is about $80,000 a month. And fortunately, that's offset by the frothy charter revenue that these jets generate. And thus, it's a profitable outcome for the owner, either in terms of the flight time that he's getting and saving or, hard dollars in his pocket at the end of every month. But beyond the management of airplanes, the business itself, the jet charter brokerage business, is extremely lean. So our sales professionals earn a very modest salary and earn a lion's share commission, and all of the company share of that commission contributes to overhead. Beyond that, in the charter brokerage side, it's really a small amount of administration and back office, and also service delivery. So the professionals who, once a trip is booked, ensure that the trains run on time, that the catering is delivered, the passenger manifest is correct, the air carrier gets all of the correct information. But those people have a lot of capacity, and the overhead relative to the commissions that the charter brokerage generates is pretty small. Like I said, it's a lucrative business and we're blessed to be in it. On the third side, the jet maintenance side, overhead for that is extremely high. Hangar rent, technicians, insurance, those bills are quite a lot every month. So we have to make sure that it's a self-liquidating business model. And most of our technicians are then billed back to the airplanes that they're working on. So we ensure that we remain profitable by carefully managing headcount and being very disciplined about ensuring that the most important part of our business, which is managing customer relationships, is always a self-liquidating side of the business because of the commission arrangements for salespeople.
You've alluded a couple times to having deep domain knowledge to be successful in the industry. Can you talk about the best ways for somebody to acquire the various skills and knowledge that they would need to be successful?
You really have to learn through osmosis by working with a company that's in the industry. I've been doing this a long time, and every week I learn something new. To be a charter broker and have success in that, you really have to, there's no way to fake that knowledge and that confidence. You have to know what you're talking about. And in many cases, the client knows more than you do, because the clients are the ones who see the airplanes every day or every time they travel, and they know their preferences. And you don't want to be a salesperson who knows less about it than your clients. So you really, if you want to crack into this industry, you've got to do it by working with a company that has that expertise. And, frankly, one of my favorite things about what we do is we're bringing in young men, young women who are a couple of years out of college, who are, like I was, enamored with the industry, and teaching them. And teaching them through learning the sourcing, learning the operations, doing the various jobs inside the company, getting on our planes. Whenever our planes cycle through Boston, I bring field trips of the team up to inspect the planes, meet our pilots, meet our technicians in Buffalo. There's nothing like seeing, feeling, and touching it to develop that domain expertise, but it also comes with time. So you have to pay your dues and learn from the pros. On the other side, buying a Part 135 air carrier, building a Part 145 FAA approved repair station, those are highly specialized business practices that you really have to know your stuff in order to get into those businesses. How I learned those sides of the business is I started a parallel career path. So before building PJM, before acquiring the 135 air carrier certificate, I managed assets, but I leased them to other Part 135 air carriers. So I got my feet very wet and learned all the other facets of the business for 5 years before I was ready to go raise some money and do this as my own operation.
What is one mistake you made early on with the company, and what'd you learn from it?
Early on, when we bought the 135 air carrier, we started a fractional program with our planes and sold 4 owners and 4 entitlements per airplane. And we took ourselves all of the operational risk of running the P&L of the airplane. That proved to be very complicated. And when we had all of these owner entitlements, we created an opportunity cost for not getting the full charter potential of our assets. So we became a slave to many masters and created just a lot of financial and operational pressure onto ourselves, and really forced the right legacy business model, which is one owner to a plane. So now we focus on selling an asset to a high net worth individual who needs it, who needs to own an airplane for their own financial, business, tax, lifestyle standpoint. And we're a slave to that one master. And for us, it forces us to really keep our eye on the ball of taking great care of a person, an owner, a business partner, and keeping that business partner's asset really monetized to its full potential and earning, in our case, a very simple and straightforward, above board profit, which is a 15% charter commission that we earn on all of our managed assets. So that one change to, frankly, a very big mistake has fueled great growth in our company and a pool of very happy owners who tell their friends. So I guess if I was going to make this relatable to your audience, Alex, I would say, especially early on in the entrepreneurial journey, don't put financial pressure on yourself and force yourself and your business into the right business model that's perfectly aligned, even if you're ostensibly leaving more profit on the table.
To kind of follow up on that, I'm curious, how that feels like almost a fundamental mistake. And so how did you handle internally recognizing this is a mistake? And then now we have to shift the entire business to this different model.
Well, it was an early mistake. And when you fail, you can fail fast. And the numbers don't lie. And for us, it was a combination of misaligned expectations and profitability that was way less than what we were used to seeing because of the opportunity cost of all of these entitlement flights. So it can take some difficult conversations, and it did take difficult conversations, but you have to make some brass balls business decisions, especially in high stakes industries like private air travel. And it takes honesty and just being able to recognize failures and mistakes, call them out. And, sometimes you've got to gnaw your arm off to get out of life's traps.
Quite famously, COVID really impacted commercial aviation. How did it impact private aviation and AJAX specifically?
At first, it was very scary. I think for the first 2 months, March, April, maybe even May, our entire fleet was grounded. March was very busy because everybody's trying to get home. And then April, May were completely dead. And the business crawled back to its form. The year 2020 was extremely difficult. Fortunately, we did get payroll protection, which kept our pilots and maintenance staff employed during those very lean months. However, after COVID or after the initial scare, the business really roared back to unprecedented heights. Demand was off the charts. And really, the driving factor for us, Alex, was a great deal of consolidation in the industry. So companies like Wheels Up and Vista Global came into the industry with billions of dollars in expansion capital. And it's difficult to grow organically, one plane at a time for a lot of regulatory and compliance reasons. And what these companies did is they bought out many of our competitors. So companies like Red Wing, Aviation, Delta Private Jets, Travel Management Company, JetEx, were all acquired. And these are big, 50, 80 plane operations. So we found ourselves in early 2022 with over 50% of the available floating fleet on-demand air charter supply, which is the market that we're in, having been consolidated into 4 different companies. So not only was demand peaked, dramatically, but it's hard to say how much, but 50%, but supply was cut by 50%. So that left companies like ours that remain standing with floating fleet of airplanes in a very enviable position with unprecedented pricing power. So flights that previously might have cost $30,000, we were charging $45,000 because we could. And that money is shared between us and our airplane owners. So it's been pretty amazing, to be honest.
That is remarkable. And I'm curious about not necessarily the process of like physically acquiring the plane, but bringing in those airplane owners into the company, because obviously you're bringing them in essentially as a business partner with you. What's your process for A, finding them, and B, making sure it's going to be a good fit?
I'll tell you, man, the most successful marketing vehicle I've ever done is starting a YouTube channel. It's called Your Friend with Jets. And YouTube has given me great license to go extremely deep into my subject matter and explain what it is that we do, show beautiful videos and pictures, interviews with our owners. And I get a great number of inquiries every week from my YouTube subscribers who see a video, somebody shares a video, and it starts a conversation.
That's a really great transition into our Fan Blitz questions, which come from our YouTube community. If you're out there listening, you can go to youtube.com/upflip, join the community, and you can pose questions to future podcast guests. We'll kind of just dive into these, Justin, because Andrew Golderman, the first question here is, how do you market AJAX Jets? And at least partially you just answered with that YouTube channel. What other channels are you using?
Primarily search engine optimization. We invest a lot in Google pay-per-click and also organic conversions. Email marketing. Our email distribution list is 50,000 strong, and that continues to make it rain. New inquiries of customers, potential customers who require a lift between point A and point B. And that's really where it starts for our team of agents. So YouTube doesn't really drive charter leads so much, but the search engine work that we do, I've been deep in search engine optimization since I started this company. So one of our landing pages has 12,000 pages on it, 1 page for every charter jet in the world. And, little tips and tricks like that continue to give our agents a fresh pool of leads every day.
What do you do with your profits?
Live La Vida Loca.
I love it. What's the biggest purchase you've ever made?
For me, it's not so much about the biggest purchase. The biggest purchase I ever made is a Falcon 50 for $3 million, but that's not what it's about. This is a fun business. It's been a really great experience building it, and I'm proud of the team that we have. So the general manager that I alluded to in Buffalo, New York, Ben Chifo, extremely experienced, has run shops before, runs that business like a drill sergeant, and it's beautiful. For a Part 135 air carrier, I'm the managing partner, but I'm not a pilot. I'm not an airplane A&P technician. I'm an entrepreneur. So the FAA mandates that we have 3 key management teams, a director of operation, a chief pilot, and a director of operation. So these three wise men are very well paid, experienced airmen, and they run that operation. So I don't want to say that I don't do anything, but I have very experienced management teams in place with these very complex organizations, and I don't have to be there all the time. So in this day and age, you can run your business from a MacBook Pro and an iPhone, and I do that. I take a lot of trips. I mix personal trips with business. I meet people everywhere that I go. I have customers in all 50 states, all over North America. So I've always got people to meet, and they happen to be in nice places. So I get to go to those places and enjoy my experience. And I do.
Can you give me one secret of business that will make me a billionaire?
What I said earlier, it's people buy programs, not proposals.
That is just absolutely wonderful advice. That is going to do it for our Fan Blitz questions. A reminder to our listeners, you can let us know what you think of this episode by reviewing it on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Justin, just a few more questions for me. You were just mentioning that management team, you got about 100 full-time employees, full-time equivalents. What are the kind of key roles on your company's team? And how did you and how have you found the right people for those roles?
The key person in my organization is my chief financial officer. And I found him, kind of a cool story. Back in college, I was an intern at a public relations firm, and I somehow ingratiated myself to the management team there and became friends with them while I was in college. And the chief financial officer of that firm, 25 years later, is the CFO of AJAX Jets.
Going a little bit further on the advertising, what is the typical advertising spend in a typical month? And you mentioned search engine optimization is kind of being the primary outlet there.
Yeah, about 10 grand a month in Google pay-per-click.
That actually seems remarkably low for the kind of like high-end product. That's incredible. What sort of online presence do you need to have for probably the brokerage side of the business in 2023?
Certainly a website that is high converting, but not even. You need relationships. Maybe I won't answer your question, but I'll give you another tip. It's remarketing. So for us, I alluded to one of our landing pages has over 10,000 unique pages on that website. We get a lot of people, like our average user visit is 40 seconds, which is pretty short. So people will click on one of these pages, won't submit a quote request, and they'll bounce off. And that's fine. We get a lot of traffic that way. But what we do is we run remarketing ads to that audience. What we're all about is identifying that person. Mr. Big, John Smith, lives in Westwood, Massachusetts, and he's a big baller and he flies privately. And then once we identify that person, we're all over them. And we can send them highly specialized marketing, thought pieces, white papers. CEO can give them a call. We can invite them to events. We can do all sorts of things once we know who that person is. What is the bridge for building that database? It's remarketing surveys. So for us, people will bounce off of our site, but they'll see throughout the Google display network, Facebook, Instagram, they'll invariably see our remarketing ads, which invite them to click this button, fill out a 5-minute survey, and receive a $1,000 private jet gift card. And they do that, fill out the survey. The survey, we use something called LandBot. It's a chat bot that we cost like $50 a month, and it delivers all of those chat outputs to us every day in a Google Sheet. So that is the bridge for turning anonymous web traffic into highly curated, highly qualified leads where we learn a lot about them and their spending habits. So once we know that little nook, Mr. John Smith lives in Westwood, Massachusetts. Here's his email, phone number, and he spends $250,000 a year flying privately. We can do a lot of things with that foothold.
You've talked sort of at length about the importance of relationships in this business, which kind of naturally talks about the importance of exceptional customer service as a business. How do you provide that top-level customer service to your customers?
Thank you for asking that. So most of the charter brokerage businesses, charter brokers out there, do not decouple service from sales. So that same sales agent who is booking the trip is coordinating that client's catering, gathering their passenger details, communicating that with the air carrier, getting passport details, all of those, coordinating rental cars, limo transportation, all of those very intricate service delivery items that are absolutely essential to the experience. We don't do that. We want our agents focused on bookings, and we want a highly qualified, experienced team that's delivering the service. I was very fortunate in that the company that I worked for way back in the day, when I left them, I brought with me Maria White, who's been with me ever since. She's about 70 years old now, and she continues to lead our service delivery team. So not only has she seen it all, done it all, she lives and breathes this every day, and having done that for before she met me, so forever. But her presence continues to give a level of continuity to my clients, even after I'm not necessarily driving the relationship. I don't personally book a lot of charters these days, but Maria still handles the service for all of my clients. And it's that principle, decoupling sales from service, that has been our secret sauce. It also, frankly, makes this a lower barrier to entry for a young salesperson to start with my company, right? Because they've got a team behind them. It's not on them specifically to know all of those ins and outs and be able to do it. You want somebody who lives and breathes it.
Now, I'm curious, because obviously you just talked through a ton of moving pieces, some of which may or may not be within your control. The weather even can impact a customer's experience. How do you handle, or how does your company handle when something goes wrong in the experience to make sure that that customer still leaves with a good experience, even if something wasn't exactly how it was intended to be?
Well, it depends. It's about communication and always being available and answering the phone. And it's situational football. So some of these matters can be very acute. My plane broke and I'm stuck here. What are you going to do about it? Or there's inclement weather and what are we going to do about it? So a lot of our job is sourcing, right? It's sourcing available lift for our clients. And we maintain those sourcing results. So sometimes it can be that a plane breaks and we just go to the next one up of airplanes that had bid on that trip. It's a very tight-knit industry. So there's online proprietary demand-side marketplaces that show us instant real-time aircraft availability. So often before we've made that call to the client that there's an issue, we've got the solution or options for that client. And then the other side of it is that things don't always go right, even if the flight goes off. The catering was wrong. The pilot was rude. I mean, these things don't happen very often, but, we deal with a lot of people and a lot of situations. The key word here is empathy. And Maria, as the head of our service delivery team, not only does she, personally exude and just drip of empathy, but it's that attitude that is pervasive across everybody in her team. So people can call the CEO, they can talk to me, they can talk to their agent. And if something needs to be rectified, we're big boys and we care mostly about having happy clients. And really, people fly privately for a multitude of reasons. It's certainly not because it's the cheapest way of going, but a lot of it's because they want to feel a certain way. They want to be treated a certain way. There's nothing like that rock star experience when your Benz pulls up to the side of your plane. You got a bunch of line guys there that are opening your trunk and putting your bags in the luggage compartment, and your pilot walks out and shakes your hand and walks you on board the plane and hands you that drink that we know that you want because of your client profile, and you want to have the Financial Times sitting on the right hand front forward seat. It's right there. There's nothing like that experience. If you've never experienced it, find a friend who's got a plane and share it with them because it's just so friggin' awesome. So if you have somebody that has those expectations and something just isn't right, they want to be heard. They want empathy. And if, like I said, if there's something that needs to be rectified, we run a big business and nothing says I'm sorry like money, even to Mr. Big.
Taking a little bit of a zoom into your day-to-day, what does your day-to-day with the company look like, and how are you managing your own workflow?
Mostly reports. So I receive a morning utilization report of every aircraft that shows that plane month to date versus month to date in prior months, commission analysis on every airplane, a bookings report for the brokerage business. and a cash flow report for our maintenance company showing a lot of jobs in progress. So each one of our businesses lives inside a SaaS system that's purpose built for that line of business. So for private jet maintenance, it's called EBIS. It's called Scudero for the operator side, and it's called Trip Manager for the brokerage side of the business. So I look at a lot of reports and I'm really out there promoting the business. I'm often, more than half of the time, I'm on the road visiting with clients, attending events, and showing planes to people. That's a lot of what I do. Is I'll have a certain listing and tend to find myself down in Miami quite a bit, because that's, especially this time of year, that's like ground zero for this industry. So I'm out there promoting the business, and invariably I have one or two scheduled calls a day with call them a strategic customer. So somebody who's highly qualified and is interested in acquiring an aircraft. And that whole process of buying and selling executive business jets, there's a lot that goes into that, from insurance to the maintenance pre-buy to aircraft finance people and escrow. It's a lot to like drive one of these deals home. So I'm like herding cats quite a bit.
In your 15 plus years in the private aviation industry, what has been the biggest change that you've seen, and how has that impacted the way in which you run AJAX?
I think the consolidation in the industry has been the biggest change, and fighting that trend to build AJAX and not, succumb to the evil empire and sell myself out. Or I really like running my own business, and I like the day-to-day challenge, and, I like bringing new people in to my companies and just being a part of the growth story. I think back in the day, there were so many more operators to work with on the brokerage side. So it could be that you could always find a plane for somebody. It might not be perfect, but because we're matching supply with demand. So there was just so many more options back in the day than there are now. These very large companies like Vista and Wheels Up have just sucked so much of the air out of the room. And these are closed companies. They don't do business typically with on-demand charter customers. So it's been certainly an adaptation to not always having a solution for a client on 4 hours notice, when if you were asked me pre-COVID, 10 times out of 10, we can get them a solution. But it's not like that anymore.
Looking forward, what are some of the changes on the horizon for the industry, and how are you preparing for those?
Well, there's constantly this move towards newer airplanes, and a lot of people are predisposed to flying on new airplanes. When I started in the business, it was 2000 or newer. Now it's 2010 or newer. Someday it'll be 2020 or newer. And that's interesting, because what we operate is old planes. We operate planes that were built in the 80s and 90s. One of our Falcon 50s, which is a 9-seat executive business jet, our oldest plane was built in 1981, Reagan's first term. When I started in this business, I would have thought, man, plane in 1981 is old, but go on that plane, it looks brand new. Absolutely gorgeous. 2022 interior, brand new glass cockpit, flight deck. Put that plane versus a 2022 super mid-sized jet, probably couldn't really tell the difference. So as people continue to want to upgrade into the latest and greatest, because that's what their ego tells them, that is going to create exceptional buying opportunities for that slice of the market that subscribes to my contrarian point of view, which is age is just a number. I'd rather have 10 Falcon 50s for $2 to $3 million each than one Challenger 300, which is kind of the latest and greatest sexy comparable jet, for $25 or $30 million. Because I'll get 10 times the cash flow on my fleet of planes than that one jet, 10 times the ROI. It's more complicated to buy and finance older planes, but I'm pretty excited about the next 10 years and all of the available inventory that's going to create for my little patch of paradise.
If you could pick the one thing that people will take away from this interview, what would it be?
I think service businesses are great. Businesses like private jet chartering charter brokering, where one person can come in and make a huge impact, right? And businesses that have little to no barrier to entry, where you can come in and learn things and, if appropriate, go off and do your own thing. So you don't have to raise a bunch of capital. You don't have to be the smartest guy on the block, because I'm certainly not. You have to care about your customers and really like what you do, really like the market that you're in, whatever it is. And if you have that kernel, you like what you do and you like your customers and you like delivering a great buying experience for those customers, the sky's the limit in anything you do. And you can get yourself into a business or a line of work with no or low barriers to entry and do great things.
What's your favorite business book and why?
My favorite book is called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And it's really a guide to life. He translated an ancient text called the Tao Te Ching, which is 81 verses of pure wisdom. And it was written, 2,000 years before Christ, so 4,000 years ago. And it's been an amazing experience for me to transform my life around the Tao. And that book made it extremely digestible and relatable. And I'll take a liberty for those in your audience who don't know what the Tao is. It's spelled Tao. And I'm going to give you one example of Taoist philosophy, and it's really essential to my life, and it's be like water. And it's akin to being flexible, right? Most people think of strength as being rigidity, the big, strong, tall oak tree, stronger than iron. But if you have a hurricane, those winds, that water, it's going to rip the roots right out of the ground, and it's going to knock that oak tree over. But if you have a palm tree that's flexible, it's going to bend with the wind, and it's going to survive that hurricane. So when we're born, babies are extremely flexible. They can touch their toe to their forehead, right? Mm-hmm. And when we die, what happens? Rigor mortis sets in. You're as stiff as a board. So flexibility is akin to youth and life, vitality and vibrancy. Rigidity is akin to oldness and death. And it's not just with our bodies, it's with our minds, with being flexible and open to new ideas and new ways of thinking. If nothing within you stays rigid, the universe of the 10,000 things will bend to your will.
Justin, where can people learn more about you, what you're working on, and AJAX Jets?
Well, our website is AJAX, AJAXJets.com, and you can follow me on YouTube at Your Friend with Jets. And if anybody would like to send me an email directly about any topic, you're welcome to. My email address is justin@AJAXJets.com.
That is going to do it for this episode of the Upflip podcast. Listeners, you can find out more advice for how to start a business the right way on the Upflip Hub, or you can check out our blog for more practical and actionable tips about how to start and grow a business. Justin Sullivan of AJAX Jets, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks again, Alex.